Let's dive into a classic story, a really good one, about a wise king, a giant stone, and a powerful lesson about how we face challenges. It's a simple little tale, but honestly, it reveals such a profound truth about who we are.
So, let's just start with this question right here. When you come up against a roadblock, an obstacle, what does your reaction really say about you? Well, this story gets right to the heart of that.
Okay, so our story kicks off with this wise, far-sighted king. He had this belief that the true strength of his kingdom wasn't, its army or how much gold it had. Nope, it was the character of its people, their willingness to actually solve problems. And being far-sighted, this king was playing the long game. He knew that for his kingdom to truly thrive down the road, his people, and especially his own sons, had to understand what real strength looked like. So he cooked up a pretty unusual test.
Here's the plan, and it's simple, but it's brilliant. He has his men haul a massive stone right into the middle of the main road, completely blocking it. Then, he takes his sons up to a high tower to just watch. The goal wasn't just to see who would move it, but to teach his sons a real-world lesson about character, responsibility, and spotting an opportunity.
So, as the day wears on, three very different groups come up to this obstacle. And what's so fascinating is that each one of them finds their own unique reason to do, well, absolutely nothing.
First up, we have the wealthy courtiers. They're followed by a group of tired farmers, and finally, the king's own most loyal knight. They all see the exact same problem, but not a single one of them thinks it's their job to fix it.
So the wealthy courtiers arrive, in their fancy chariots, all puffed up and important. The second they see the stone blocking their path, they're just outraged. They don't see a problem to be solved, they see a failure in service. Their first instinct? Blame. That's it. They curse the king, they complain loudly to anyone who will listen, and then they just turn their chariots around to find another route. Taking responsibility didn't even enter the picture.
All right, next up, a group of farmers comes along, totally exhausted from a long day working in the fields. They see this giant stone, and they don't see it as a practical problem at all. To them, it's something spiritual, a sign from a higher power, or maybe a test to their faith. So their response is what you'd call deference. They pray, they accept the obstacle as just fate, and they simply walk around it, leaving the problem right where it is for the next person. They just accepted the world as it was, instead of trying to change it. And finally, the king's most loyal knight shows up. Now, you'd think he'd be the one, right? He's dutiful, he sees the rock, he recognizes the danger it poses to travelers. He knows something has to be done, so he rushes off, not to move it, but to tell the king about it.
And there it is, the third type of inaction. Delegation. The knight, he does his duty by reporting the problem up the chain of command, but the idea of taking personal initiative to solve it himself, it just never crossed his mind. He outsourced the solution.
As evening starts to fall and the sun's getting low, it's really starting to look like the king's big lesson is just about human apathy. But then, a single farmer appears. He's exhausted from his own day's work, carrying a heavy load.
But this farmer's whole perspective is completely different. He doesn't see an annoyance or a divine sign or some failure of the king. He just sees a shared responsibility to make sure other people don't suffer.
So he sets down his heavy load and he starts to push. And it is an immense struggle. I mean, his body is quickly just drenched in sweat as he strains against this massive weight. You can just picture it, right? His muscles are trembling, he's breathing heavy, he's all alone, totally exhausted, and he's pushing with every last ounce of strength he has. But he did not give up. He just kept at it, pushing and straining until finally, with one last huge effort, the rock moved. He cleared the path.
And it's in that moment of victory, right after he's cleared the road for everybody else, that he discovers something totally unexpected. It turns out the struggle itself was holding a secret. Lying right there in the hole where the huge stone used to be was a leather pouch. And inside, it was full of shining gold coins. But this wasn't just some random treasure. Just then, the king and his sons come down from the tower, and the king explains that the gold was a reward, not for being the strongest person, but for being the only person who understood their responsibility and actually did something about it. Then, turning to his sons, the king delivers the most important lesson of the day. He tells them that the obstacles we face in life, they aren't there to stop us. They are the path. They're opportunities, and by overcoming them, we get stronger and we forge our own way forward.
And you have to imagine, for the king's sons, watching all this happen was so much more powerful than any lesson they could have ever read in a book. They saw with their own eyes the difference between blame and deference and delegation and real, true ownership.
And that brings us right back to where we started. This story, really, it's an invitation for us to look at our own lives. So, what's the stone in your road? Is it just an inconvenience to blame on somebody else? Is it some fate that you just have to accept? Or is it an opportunity? An opportunity to take responsibility, to build your own strength, and maybe, just maybe, find a hidden reward.